Before today's video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest videos. If you want to see a case or topic covered by Paranormally Listed, then go to criminallylisted.com and fill out the questionnaire under the Suggest a Case tab. Number 3. Flooding and a volcano eruption in Brazil. In 1555, French seer Michel d'Ostranaum, better known as Nostradamus, wrote in the prophecies, quote, "Garden of the world near the new city, in the path of the hollow mountains, it will be seized and plunged into the tub, forced to drink waters poisoned by sulfur." Many people believe that the garden of the world is the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. The new city mentioned in the prophecy is believed to be Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. It's in the central west area of Brazil. In 2022, it was home to over 2.8 million people. People have interpreted this prediction to mean there will be flooding in Brasilia, causing immense damage. Then, as the city is reeling from the flooding, a volcano eruption will occur. However, there are major problems with this prediction. First, Brasilia is very unlikely to flood because it's landlocked. It's at least 700 miles from the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. It's also 3,800 feet above sea level. However, there is an artificial lake in the area, but it's also very unlikely to flood in the upcoming year. The area could experience heavy rainfall, which could lead to flooding. However, that also seems unlikely. According to the World Bank's Think Hazard website, quote, "There's a chance of less than 1% that potentially damaging and life-threatening river floods will occur in the next 10 years, unquote. Also, the area does not have a history of flooding, so it seems incredibly doubtful that Brasilia will be affected by a flood. As for a volcano eruption, that also seems unlikely. There are at least 7 volcanoes in Brazil. However, they are all extinct. Also, all of them are over 1,000 miles away from Brasilia. So it seems unlikely that a volcano eruption will affect the area. However, some people don't think that Nostradamus was specifically talking about Brasilia. Instead, he was talking about the country of Brazil. Brazil, like any coastal country, has a chance of flooding. Things are only getting worse with climate change. For example, in April and May 2024, there was massive flooding in the state of Rio Grande do Sul in southern Brazil. 181 people were killed and over 580,000 people were displaced. So major flooding in Brazil in 2025 is very possible. Also, while it's incredibly unlikely, there's a minuscule possibility of a volcano eruption in Brazil. As previously mentioned, all the volcanoes in Brazil are extinct. That means they haven't erupted in the past 10,000 years and are unlikely to erupt again. In 2023, people living near the Nova Iguaçu volcano near Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, found loud bangs and felt rumblings. They thought the volcano was reactivating, but geologists said that wasn't happening. The volcano stopped being active 145 million to 65 million years ago. But something else to note is that some volcanoes are hidden and lay undiscovered. This includes underwater volcanoes. By some estimates, there are thousands of undiscovered volcanoes on the floor of the ocean. Underwater volcanoes can cause tsunamis, which can lead to flooding. Nostradamus prophesies, quote, "It will be seized and plunged into the tub, forced to drink waters poisoned by sulfur," unquote. It's important to note that Nostradamus didn't write flooding, but instead he wrote seized and plunged into the tub. Could this mean a tsunami? Also, waters poisoned by sulfur sounds like the description of a tsunami caused by a volcano. Brazil has the 15th longest coastline in the world. so maybe this prediction isn't as inaccurate as it first seemed. Number 2. Conclusion of a European war. Nostradamus prophesies, quote, "Through long war, all the army exhausted, so that they do not find money for the soldiers. Instead of gold or silver, they will come to coin leather, Gallic brass, and the crescent sign of the moon," unquote. There are currently two armed conflicts happening in Europe. One is the Islamic State insurgency in the North Caucasus, which is the subregion separating Europe and Asia. The North Caucasus is under control of Russia. But this isn't a war. It's terrorist activity by a transnational group, and it's usually followed by a response by the Russian forces instead of two nations at war. There's only one real official war in Europe. It's the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which began on February 24, 2022. In the nearly 3 years since the invasion began, 43,000 Ukrainian soldiers were killed in action, and an additional 370,000 were injured. Over 39,000 Ukrainian civilians have been killed, and a further 27,000 have been injured. 3.5 million people have been displaced in Ukraine, and 6.7 million have left the country as refugees. Meanwhile, Russia has suffered over 760,000 casualties. But could it all come to an end this year? There's a lot of speculation about what will happen when Donald Trump takes office in January 2025 because of his past dealings with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin. In December 2019, Trump was impeached because of a phone call with President Zelensky. In July 2019, Trump had withheld aid already allotted for Ukraine, and then, on a phone call, asked Zelensky to investigate his political opponent, Joe Biden, and Biden's son over discredited allegations. The Democrats argue this was illegal because Trump was asking a foreign entity to help win a U.S. election. Trump has always claimed he did nothing wrong and the phone call was, quote, perfect, unquote. Nevertheless, in December 2019, Trump was impeached. Trump has repeatedly expressed admiration for Putin. For example, in 2022, he called the invasion genius and savvy. Trump has also blamed Zelensky for starting the war. Trump has also been critical of the war for the human cost and how much it's cost the USA. At the time of this writing, Ukraine is facing daily attacks from drones, ballistic missiles, and glide bombs. Much of the country's energy grid has been destroyed. Ukraine's ability to fight the war relies largely on foreign aid, most of which comes from the United States. The U.S. has provided Ukraine with over $108 billion in military, humanitarian, and economic aid since the invasion began 3 years ago. If they stop getting aid, they will not be able to continue to put up much of a resistance. Both the U.S. Department of Defense and Ukrainian President Zelensky have said without support from the United States, they would lose the war. In December 2024, NBC News asked Trump if the Ukrainians should expect less aid when he took office. He said, possibly, and then, probably, sure. However, one of Trump's more well-known traits is that he's unpredictable. So what he'll do about aid to Ukraine remains to be seen. Trump has vowed to end the war within 24 hours of taking office, but he did not explain how. Incoming Vice President J.D. Vance has promoted the idea of a peace treaty with Russia where they keep the land they have already captured, which, at the time of this recording, is about 20% of Ukraine. This is not a popular idea in Ukraine. Ukraine has said they do not think that peace talks will start when Trump becomes president. A spokesperson said, quote, no negotiation process can take place because Russia has not been made to pay a high enough price for this war, unquote. However, they may not have a choice if the United States stops sending them aid. Based on the last part of Nostradamus' prediction, Gallic brass, and the crescent sign of the moon, there is some speculation that France and Turkey may be involved in the peace negotiations. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, Gallic means, quote, relating to France or French people, and typical of French people, unquote. Meanwhile, Turkey has a crescent moon on its flag. It is a symbol of the Ottoman Empire and Turkey's national emblem. It's unknown how these two countries would be involved in ending the war. Both are considered allies of Ukraine. So we'll have to wait to see what happens, but this prediction could come true, for better or worse. Number 1. A war and a disease outbreak in the United Kingdom. Nostradamus wrote, quote, the kingdom will be marked by wars so cruel, foes within and without will arise. A great pestilence from the past returns, no enemy more deadly under the skies, unquote. The two sentences have been interpreted as the United Kingdom will have war on their own soil and they'll suffer some disease outbreak. But how likely is it that the United Kingdom will go to war? The head of the English Army, General Sir Roland Walker, said in June 2024 that the English need to build up their military to deter an attack from an invading country. He wants to double the army in 3 years and triple it within a decade. He thinks that a strong army will be a deterrent to any attacks. He said there are 3 major potential threats. General Walker said that no matter what the results of the war in Ukraine are, he believes that Russia will seek retribution for anybody who aided them during the war. He also believes that China will try to capture Taiwan. Finally, he believes that Iran is developing nuclear weapons. General Walker said that since the invasion of Ukraine, the 3 nations have been sharing technology and weapons. General Walker wants his army to focus on technology like artificial intelligence and firepower. He hopes in 3 years the army will be strong enough to deter any possible attacks. So perhaps someone will start a war with the United Kingdom next year before they are ready for it. Also, the prediction says, quote, the kingdom will be marked by wars so cruel, foes within and without will arise, unquote. It's unclear when the foes within and without will arise. Is that the start of the war, or does the war allow them to embolden and rise up? Also, who are the foes within and without? There are 4 countries in the United Kingdom: England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. At the time of this recording, none of them seem likely to go to war with each other in the next 12 months. But who knows what will happen if a foreign entity attacks them. Another possibility is that in the chaos of the war, there could be an uprising of a well-organized minority or minorities who feel marginalized in the United Kingdom. The second part of the prophecy is that, quote, a great pestilence from the past returns, no enemy more deadly under the skies, unquote. This has been interpreted to mean there will be a disease outbreak. These 2 predictions pair well together. An article in The Lancet, a medical journal about infectious diseases, entitled War and Infectious Diseases, Brothers in Arms, says, quote, war is always accompanied by infectious disease outbreaks, unquote. We've seen it happen in the past. During the American Civil War, there were outbreaks of over 6 diseases. The diseases became known as the Third Army. It's believed that 2/3 of the soldiers that died were killed by disease. World War II also had outbreaks of diseases like malaria and typhus. However, a major source of typhus were the ghettos created by the Nazis in their concentration camps. Disease outbreaks in war-ravaged areas are still a problem today. In Syria in 2016 and 2017, during their civil war, there was a measles outbreak. There are several reasons why disease outbreaks are common in war-torn countries. One is that people are displaced and often live in crowded temporary camps. The camps may have poor sanitation and water quality. It's also harder for people to access medical care because the infrastructure, such as roads and bridges, may be destroyed. The hospital could even be destroyed, or medical experts could flee the country. All this can greatly contribute to an outbreak. So if the United Kingdom does go to war and they are attacked in their homeland, a disease outbreak would be incredibly likely. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.